I Love Myself Fix presents hashtag Coming Into Grace, hosted by mother and son duo at Courtney's Fix and at Osh's Fix. And today we are joined by Damien Ford. How are you, Damien?
I'm great, all things considered. How about you guys? How y'all doing down there in the A?
It's all right in the A. It's
Okay.
it's
You know,
yeah, we're trying to make it through.
it's helicopters and sirens at night, and it's
And during the day.
and tanks during the day, and
Okay.
mixed
Okay.
in, with a little bit of Starbucks coffee. People going to Starbucks coffee. It's a
Okay.
lot of non sequiturs happening.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, here in Baltimore, we have plenty of ghetto birds, sirens, more of the same. Baltimore stays on fire. I really believe that Baltimore really does have a spirit of protest about it. So that's
Yeah.
always in the air. But definitely given, the past couple of weeks and events the past couple of weeks with our brother George Floyd and our sister Breonna Taylor and so many more, Baltimore is definitely on fire like many places, not just in the country, across the world are right now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
For sure.
And seeing that support across the world has been phenomenal since
Hasn't it? Hasn't
oh
it?
my,
Right?
when I lived in Paris, almost every weekend there would be many of the countries, whether it be Senegal, whether it be Mali, and there would have a very silent, organized protest almost every Sunday. And
Mm.
it was fascinating to watch because, I had only been to a protest probably in college, and we were protesting apartheid.
Okay.
But that's not something that we have here regularly. But I would go out on Sundays and watch them
Mm.
protest down major, thoroughfares on the
Okay.
weekend.
Okay.
And then looking on my, phone and looking again, I was like, there it goes. So, all right. You want to kick this
Yeah.
off? All
Yeah.
right.
With having been through many protests, not necessarily like this, but that were centered around this topic or this focus, what's it like having a child go through some of the same things or very different things and a different, but it's all about the same now. It's seeming
I'm
that
sorry, Ash. Ghetto bird in the background was the last thing you said.
the last thing I said was, what is it like having been through many protests in your lifetime and now having a child
Mm.
have to deal with the same issues that you dealt with when you were a child?
Mm. So, right off the bat, no surprise that Marley is having to deal with some of the same struggles I've dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Racism, colorism, sexism, just all the isms and schisms. But I guess in a lot of ways, I'm not surprised. Being a self-proclaimed student of history, racism surely and all the isms surely, have not subsided, and we definitely have not made enough progress in my lifetime for it to be that impactful, where it was, going to be non-existent or seldom talked about. We're still eons away from there. I'm glad that along the years, watching her grow, being her dad, that I did share with her, the stories that my grandparents shared. I'm glad that I did share with her, my protest stories from, being her age and younger, and the rationales and the reasons why. So it's not a surprise to look up and see her, doing things, protesting on her own terms, in her own ways, in her own styles, with her crew, with her people, with her tribe. So I guess in a lot of ways, it's just a natural progression, that here we are now, from me at 48 to her at 21. as I think she's literally like about to head out to DC now. You know,
Oh, yeah.
surprise, surprise. Yeah,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
as we speak. So surprise, surprise.
Mhm. Mhm.
And even though we can only control so much, my generation, those of us who are African American and who deal with these plights, what is it? What can we do to further expedite the process so that, like you, we don't have to fear as much for our children or assume that they will have to go through what we went through? Is there anything that we can do on our side to make it easier for the others to understand us and help stand in solidarity with us?
I think you're doing it, Ash. I think you're doing it right now. We're doing it right now in this moment. You know, you're having the courage, you're having the faith, you're having the understanding to listen. You know, you're listening to your mom, you're listening to your elders, and you're taking what we say, what we don't say, what we do, and what we don't do, and you're absorbing it, you're blending it, and you know, you're coming up with your message, and you know, you're adding to your story. And not only are you doing that, you're amplifying it in this digital and this virtual format, you know, so that, you know, hopefully, you know, the hope is, right, like, you know, this in some shape, form, or fashion hits someone else and resonates with someone else, and who knows where it goes, right? And you know, as things go, you know, when you're not doing it for the likes and doing it for the gram and such, right? There's going to be someone that hears this, hopefully, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, and it sparks something.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that's number one. I would also dare say, you know, because we have this technology and we seem to think that everything is seemingly at our fingertips when it comes to, you know, what we, for information purposes, right? But there's a lot to be said about just going back to the basics and digging into the books, because you know, there are countless books that are pertinent to you and I in our history that was never going to make it to Barnes and Nobles, right? And so subsequently, you know, they never get uploaded into Barnes and Nobles websites, right? And so there are a lot of gems and a lot of, you know, treasure troves of knowledge that are, you know, all around us that maybe we don't necessarily think of anymore by way of libraries or even folks' personal libraries.
It's funny that you say that today, because I posted a picture of my mom today. I missed her so much.
And I saw that about
Right.
about an hour or so ago.
And I mean, my mom was, you know, she was probably 1/3 like a perfect girl, from like the first Stevie Wonder song to like a debutante to like a freedom fighter. Like she was all mixed in. You weren't sure which one was going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about that same thing today, because she was a, you know, Pan-African, you know, American history major. So then
Which
she
I
was,
did not know.
oh yeah, no. A lot of people, oh yeah. So you know about me. You know about me on the, so mom would sit there and she would pull out all these books you never saw before when an assignment would come. And then, you know, we would get a bad grade on the assignment listening to her. So then finally we're like, Mom, keep your books. Do not tell us anymore. We do not want to fail the subject. But I was thinking about that exact thing that you brought up today. And I was just thinking about all the information that she would give me. And, you know, at a time, you know, especially in the 80s, come on, that was Dynasty and Knots Landing. Nobody wanted to hear, you know, that to some degree. So, but that's funny that you shared that. So.
Well, what I found interesting is that you noted that your mom was a Tosh fan. So it's interesting, in being a reggae lover that you know that I am, and you know my obvious respect and love for Bob Marley, a la Marley. And it's always interesting to me who people gravitate towards in the early Bob Marley and the Wailers groups, whether it was going to be Bob, Peter, or Bunny, and people that go for Peter, go for Tosh, are really like bout it, like nothing nice about it, like straight to it, like you said, stepping razor, like
Right.
coming for you.
That was Gwen. That was, I mean, and you wouldn't know because she was, but that's who she was.
Okay.
My dad was probably a little more like, I don't know, like a Sam Cooke. But my mom was like, no, like I got something for you. And no one ever knew. I was like, ooh, okay. So
so those are two things I would say, Ash. And and thirdly, continue to be creatively courageous, if that makes sense, right? Like, continue to push when I tell you go left, right? And even to your mom, your mom tells you, go left, and you really feel like in your heart of hearts, you just got to go right. Listen, trust yourself, right? And listen to yourself and go with it.
I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Damien, I would love if you would share, what do you think are some of your greatest gifts?
I think I'm a good listener, that I can, and I think I'm a good listener, and I think that I can listen to someone that is literally just drooling, as in a baby, and read what I think a baby needs, whether they're hungry or whether they're wet,
Right.
and on across the, the human growth and development, continuum. As an educator, I'm always mindful with working with a range of young people, that even in a high school, that I have to remind myself that there's a difference between a freshman's needs and a senior's needs, though, they're both in the same range, but their needs can be very different. And so, over the years, really trying to hone that skill of actively listening. So one, I'm gleaning that information, but two, so that I can vibe and connect with a person, in a way that feels genuine. So I think, that would be, one of my strengths for sure. I think I also have a knack for, for just reading people, period, and letting my intuition just kind of take over, and, not necessarily doing what's prescribed, but trying to do what's necessary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this may be a reach, to talk to someone like you, Courtney, and your culinary fantabulousness, right? But I think I know a thing or two about, a decent morsel of food.
You can burn. You were quite.
I have a moment or two. But it's interesting that you asked, and those are two things that, not just to, just thinking about what I may do or what I may offer, but those are kind of things that bring me joy too. Like, I like listening to people in earnest. When someone has something, it's very humbling when someone shares something with you that they didn't just pull out their behind, right? Like, they're not just right, and they're not just giving you a pat response, right? There's something humbling about that. When someone truly bears themselves, whether it be a fear or a joy, and they share that with you, I think that's humbling, and I appreciate that. And as far as food goes, and in the tradition of Black folk with food, that's what brings me joy too. Being able to sit around, with whether a small intimate crew or a massive, right, and really, have that fellowship over breaking bread.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I enjoy.
You also have quite the range of spirits. You have quite the palette of spirits.
so boring being one way, right? I mean, you're still the same, right? I'm still, it's me, right? Like, so no matter how you see me, right? Like you've seen me, running around in swim trunks, and right, and you see me in, black tie, apparel, but nonetheless, it's still us, right? We just finding different ways to adorn our bodies, you know. And I think we should be comfortable in all those fronts, and so I try and be comfortable no matter what,
Mm-hmm. What about you?
What would you say that your gift is the reason why you were put on this earth, or do you believe that you were put on this earth for another reason?
I don't know if there is one reason or all the reasons why I was put on this earth. I'm typically very private with my prayers and my ask, my ask of the Most High, my ask of the universe. It's just something that's very, very private to me, and no disrespect to folks that, loudly and publicly, proclaim their love for, their gods, their Yahwehs, their Jehovahs, their Allahs, whoever. But that's just more of me. But I will share that, one of my constant asks in prayers is that I'm just simply used as an instrument of the Most High. And that's where I am now. If I could think back as far as, I was about your age, right? I was thinking more about what was my purpose, and, thinking about, what I thought my natural talents were and what people had told me, and putting those together and really thinking about, what is my purpose and what does it mean to me to lead a purpose-driven, sort of life, and have that attitude about, going into whatever endeavors. So, I see my life as a gift, and, and I think our lives are meant, to be filled with gifting to others. It's about, what we share, and not just definitely not just the tangible things that we share.
You mentioned just a moment ago, as you were thinking about your purpose when you were younger, as people were sharing with you, did a lot of people in your life share with you what they believed your purpose was, and was that in a loving way?
I had an aunt that called me and told she basically told me that I was going to be one of two things, and I never ever believed either one of them. She told me I was either going to be a preacher or a teacher. And I didn't believe either one, right? Because I was more so thinking, well, you're told to, I come from that era of being a 70s babies, where, our grandparents that were born in the 30s and great aunts and such born in the 30s and 40s told you, do good in school, right? And what does that really translate to? It meant do better than I did, do better than we did, get the opportunities that we didn't have. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what's a nice profession, that, my parents and my grandparents would not have had access to because of all the ceilings, because of all the, the limitations of Jim Crow and racism. So I thought lawyer, right? That's a good, respectable job. You get to wear a suit, right? You get to speak, and, you get to dazzle, juries and judges, with your eloquence. Nah, that was not going to work for me. As I shifted from my younger self to more, it really was because, once I really started to develop more of a worldview, that I realized that wasn't for me. I knew it definitely wasn't a preacher. And again, no disrespect to folks that, are religious, but, I definitely was one of those persons in a very cliched sense, that shifted from religion to spirituality, going from, the church and revivals to, Rasta Naya Bingis. So, that was not going to be it for me either. And where should I go with this? And where I'll go with this is my dad, who is a retired bus driver, never put a lot of emphasis on money, like in terms of a volume that you have to have this amount or that amount. And he always reminded me that, money isn't everything. He always reminded me, when I wanted a little hustle as a young person, because I wanted nice things, the name brand designer things, right? That only you're going to be able to buy because your parents not buying it, because you're crazy if you think you're getting some $100 sneakers, or you're getting that jacket for $100. Boy, you crazy, right? And so I fell into that trap of getting a little penny ante job, and my sole purpose was to buy gear, right? And so you look up and you go through a whole 2-week cycle, right? And I remember like calculating and adding, like, okay, well, if I work this many hours and this is my hourly rate and this is what the tax is, then it'll take me 2 weeks, and I'm eyeing, that gear in this store, and the mission was to get enough to go get that one item. Then you go back to work again, right? And you work for 2 weeks because you're only getting paid bi-weekly, and it was okay. Then next check, I'm getting this, right? So coming out of college, realizing, okay, I have this degree now. What am I supposed to do? And I thought I would go to law school. I thought I would go to grad school. I was working already, and I felt like my pull, my charge was to give back. Mm-hmm. That I needed to, at least for some stretch of time, be a teacher and educator in front of some Black boys. And so that's what I wound up doing, but thinking I was only going to do that just for a hot second as kind of, my give back, air quotes, my give back, and then go off back to whatever I was doing in New York, writing and working on Park Avenue at the time. But umpteen years later, here I am. And I think that's because, I wasn't chasing a dollar necessarily. And I felt like I didn't need to do that to make a decent salary to take care of myself and, to provide for my family.
And what was that aunt's name again, who put the stamp on your forehead?
That was my Aunt Edie.
Aunt Edie. Aunt Edie called that.
Yeah, that we called her auntie.
Mo.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I'm looking for the, so we always have something hilarious happening here. So this is the beauty of interviews in the house. Like having a laptop that's just about to go dead during an interview.
Of course.
That's just first class move right there on my part.
Absolutely.
Damien, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, so Ash, how old are you now, Ash? You 21, right?
No, I'm 20. I turned 21 in August.
Okay, so being 20, what do you say to a high schooler? Like what do you say to a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old? Everything that's going on, everything that's popping off in Atlanta and everywhere across the country and across the world, as we were saying, in response to, the protests for Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. What do you say, when a young buck pulls up on you and says, let's just go, like, this is some bullshit. I can't take it anymore. I'm fed up. Like, what is your response?
My response would be to that young individual. If you can't take it anymore, then what can you take? And that thing that you can take, does it resonate with you the same way that the thing that you can't take resonates with you.
Wait, we're recording this, right? So
Right.
I can use that, right? Because that was pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I tell them to pay attention to what their soul tells them inside. Because most of the time when something is awry or doesn't feel right, everyone else in the world could be telling you that it's good, that it's bad, that it's whatever. But the only thing that really matters, just like you said, is what you are saying inside of you. And I feel like that voice is in every single one of us, white, black, doesn't matter what race, because we are all one race. And when we begin to listen to others and begin to ignore that voice inside ourselves, I find that we can't find the time to care for ourselves. And if we can't find the time to care for ourselves, how can we care for anyone else?
So that was pretty profound for 20, almost 21, right? And so, your answer may change, it may grow, it may expand, right? It, may become more concise, but I think, this right here is so important. The fact that you're thinking about that answer and going to be, and going to be prepared, because you're going to be asked, right?
Exactly.
You're going to be asked, and, the longer you're here, with us, the more that's going to happen, right?
Right, right. I just want people to give everyone the space that they need to understand each other. Because sometimes not sometimes, the general majority of time and the way that this society was structured makes it so that we're so focused on things that do matter, but matter because they've made them matter.
Mm.
When we begin to focus on what really matters to us and what matters to those around us and how those around us feel, then we can better come into touch with what makes us human and what makes us animals. So
I agree, and I think, going back to, talking about listening and really hearing people, I think culturally as Americans, as a society, we've really gotten far from that, and I can think, back in my younger days in college, there was a guy that on every Friday he would wear a pair of blue jeans, and he would put a piece of masking tape across his derriere, across his behind, and he would have a message on it every Friday. Why? Because I think it was called the Alliance at the time, where I went to school, Drew University in New Jersey, and there's they were a pro-gay organization at the time. So prior to, LGBTQ and where we've evolved to today, it was just simply for gay rights. And the Alliance would, on every week, on every Friday, they would post these posters advertising, asking people to wear blue jeans in solidarity, with the Alliance, which I thought was pretty ingenious, right? Because everybody in college wears jeans, right? And so even the cats who were like so anti-gay and not down with it and really hateful, they would forget, or that was all they had. So they were wearing jeans on Friday, right? Right? You're wearing the same two pair of jeans, right? Exactly. But what was interesting about this dude, I want to say his name because interesting, he's a lawyer now too. So this dude walk around, with his long blonde ponytail and leather motorcycle jacket and his jeans, and every Friday there'll be some rude response to the Alliance. And so, at surface, you think, me looking the way I look at the time, I wasn't as built as you, but a little bit, had the locks going. and he has his look going, and so we're automatically at odds, right? We're beefing, right? We're automatically, right? But him and I took the time to literally sit some days and have lunch, just the two of us, just talking,
Mhm.
just me listening to him, telling me why he's doing it, where he's coming from. I don't have to agree,
No,
but
we
I'm
don't.
listening because my thought was iron sharpens iron. Like, this dude is going to go out here in the world. He's going to be making moves. He's going to be doing his thing. I want to know what's going on in this dude's head, right?
Mhm.
And I kind of felt like I was behind enemy lines going to this PWI. I'm behind enemy lines, so I'm
Mhm.
here to take notes and figure out how to deal with y'all,
Right.
right? And I felt like that's something that I could not have gotten in the classroom, even though we're talking about you know a total education system that has been built on this ethnocentric facade, right? That we have in America. But I certainly learned way more just by listening to dudes like him that looked differently and thought differently. And as long as we can agree to keep it to our words across the table, me and him were both cool. As long as nobody put anybody's hands on anybody, we were cool. We're not voting the same, but we're cool. We're not trying to be next door neighbors. We were both just seeking to understand. And I think, when we can let go of ourselves and let go of our prideful selves to really be able to listen to someone, again, as long as they're not being violent, that there's so much more that we can gain, not just for ourselves, but then taking that back to your people, your household, your community, right? And being able to Rolodex that information, tuck it away in your schema. And when situation arises, because lo and behold, there's going to be somebody else that's going to come across, you're going to come across, I was going to come across, that would have the same views. They may not be broadcasting them, across their behind on a piece of masking tape, but in their actions, right? Their deeds, their words, it's going to come out. And so, I took those as learning opportunities so that as I fast forward to now, I'm better prepared to deal with folks that think like him.
Exactly. And that's all that you can ask. That's all that you can ask.
It's interesting too. Now, I've seen this guy in recent years traded in the leather motorcycle jacket, the ripped up jeans, the blonde ponytail, traded all in, nice buzz cut, very standard Brooks Brother-ish blue suits,
Right.
Yeah.
right? White dress shirt,
Yeah.
red tie. That's his normal attire now. That's his uniform now.
Right. Same person.
Same person.
Mm-hmm. Or he may not be.
Right. You're right.
That's the beauty of it as well, right?
So I know he works in DC. I know he's a lawyer. I don't know who exactly he's working for now, or if he's with the feds now or whatever. But I guess thankfully for him and I, both in our generation, we don't have all of the tweets that will live on in infamy.
Right.
And certainly, because imagine if there were pictures of him and all of the crude messages he wore across his behind, that were staunchly and openly anti-gay in this climate, how that would bode for him in this climate.
Right. I mean, and that is a whole nother note, because that is actually just, that is one of my core tenets, is a human's ability to change.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, and that's what this whole thing is about. I mean, that's what this whole thing is about. Underneath it all is, here are people who are trying to exist, who contribute, who are I mean, I could keep going of what that is, but that there are these individuals and policies and perceptions and even hatred that has been developed over years of not change.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what this is about. And then what makes social media scary and beautiful is that so much gets documented. You pray in the future when somebody looks back on that they have the lack of judgment and the benevolence to not hold you in that exact place where you were left on, as you spoke out. And that is, coming to pass right now as this is becoming more sensitive. And I want to believe that this ratio, I can't even call it a pandemic, because pandemic lasts for a little while and then it affects everybody and then it goes away. That's not what this is. And so, but as this hopeful evolution is happening, that people will as well have the benevolence to forgive. Because ultimately, if things go the right way, then everybody has to have the benevolence. I mean, to me, this has so much to do with even Maslow, everything else. But the whole point is we're supposed to be up here. And if people don't have what they need down here, and then on the next level and the next level, well, then they're not allowed to ascend. And then if none of us are ascending, because that ascension is then the point in which we're supposed to be able to think past the body. We're only supposed to think toward the spirit. But you can't think toward the spirit when all you're thinking about is whether you're going to live, whether you can eat.
For real.
And, but as things even out, then things, things calm down. People have the breath and ability to listen and hear for there to be change. So.
And it's times like these when it's really interesting, like we really start to unpack, the changes that we've seen in the past week to 2 weeks, right? How many people were inspired by a tweet, a text, by turning on a TV and looking at, the screen and looking at, 10, 20, 50 people congregating, right? And then decided I needed to jump in my car or jump on a plane and get somewhere and enjoying that, right? At some point, a lot of people, a lot of those individuals may have thought or may have felt like, I want to change, I don't know how. I want to change, but nothing's going to change, right? And here we are.
Yep. And there lies the beauty of social media.
and back to what I'm saying, having that continuing to be creatively courageous, Ash, is so important because again, it's activities like this, just this simple conversation, that hopefully, somewhere down the line it could just resonate between the three of us and grow into something else. But hopefully just something takes root with somebody and, it gives them what they need at that moment to change.
Well, Damien, if you would look at the camera for us and say, I love myself.
I love myself.
How about you?
I love myself.
I love myself too.
And I love y'all.
I love you very much.
Very much.
No, and please give my love to the one that's missing.
Oh, I will. Yeah, I will. She's in there wrestling with the dogs.
Yeah.
So, well, we just want to say, for those of you who are watching, thank you again for your time. And thank you for watching this Next episode, I love myself fix as it is presented to coming into grace, knowing who we are and loving us for it. See you next time.